Hi, everyone, and happy Thursday. We are very excited to welcome you to the latest webinar from Medicus as part of our Evolve series. We have a great panel today and a great topic, so I will just give a few moments for you guys to all get settled. But you are joining a webinar for leadership in a post-COVID world where technology meets empathy. And notice we use the word post here. I hope we can all agree that we are finally moving into a post-COVID world. So while some of you are just joining, I'll just do a few housekeeping reminders. This is being recorded, as Zoom just told you as well. So if you miss anything, we will share the recording. You can always listen back. You can also share this with any other leaders that you think might enjoy this content next in future coming weeks. And we will have time at the end for question and answer. So if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature on Zoom, or you can wait until the end and I'll announce and come back that it is time for Q&A. All right, I hope everyone has gotten a moment. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the latest webinar from Medicus called our Evolve series. We are very excited to be here today for a great topic that is leadership in a post-COVID world where technology meets empathy. As the COVID pandemic has really turned the world on its side and it created scenarios where people had no choice but to reevaluate what's important and make job choices that were more in line with their needs. And while job satisfaction is a strong indicator of one's happiness in life, what contributes even more is one's overall wellness and mental health, is that employees are seeking more from their jobs and striving beyond just a paycheck. So today, I'm very excited to have a great panel of Ankit, Monica, and Tim to discuss what it means to be a quiet leader and why it is critical to approach challenges with understanding, approachability, and composure. And before I start introducing Monica, just as a quick reminder, one of you amazing attendees today will win a free copy of Ankit's book, Quiet Leader, Loud Results. All right, so now before we get into the speaker bios, I just have a quick Q&A or a quick poll that we would like to launch. So if everyone could just answer these quick questions, you should see it pop up on your screen. Does it come up yet? Oh, there it is. All right. So how did you find out about this webinar? Just let us know. It helps us know how to communicate best. What is your occupation? And just so you know, this is anonymous, so you can feel comfortable taking the poll. And then the third question is, do you feel like your organization already exhibits empathetic leadership? Interested to see what everyone says here. So I'll give you guys another 10 seconds to input your poll answers. All right, some elevator music. Here we go. Last chance. Okay. Ooh, still more coming. Okay, thank you. Let's share this with our speakers so they know who they're speaking with today. So welcome back. Many of you have watched a previous webinar. Thank you. Most of you are in the other category of your occupation. Well, some of you put in the chat box what you are so that we know and we can include it as a position next time. And lastly, this is great. 88% of you think your organization already exhibits some empathetic leadership. So I'm very excited to see how we can help you today take it to the next level. All right, so let's get into our speakers. First, I am very excited to introduce Monica Gutierrez-McCarthy. She is the Senior VP and COO at Eisner Health. Now, since 2009, Monica has worked in the community health sector with an unwavering vision to create notable change as a service center leader and strategist. And today, she's Eisner's Health Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. Prior to joining Eisner Health, she was Director of Operations at Ocean, a nonprofit organization designed to leverage information technology and data to enhance and support community health center organizations. And then cultivating her 20 years of experience, Monica has consistently harnessed the power of technology and her unparalleled foresight to lead teams into the future. So really excited to hear from Monica today. Second speaker for today, we have Ankit Mahadevia. I said I wouldn't try and pronounce his name, but I will try. And Ankit is an entrepreneur, CEO, speaker, and author. If you recognize his face, that's because he is the author of Quiet Leader, Loud Results, which many of you may have seen on the bookshelves. He has spoken widely on leadership from everywhere from at Harvard University to Columbia, Northwestern, and Berkeley. He has co-founded 9 biotechnology companies, including Spero Therapeutics, where he currently serves as CEO. And he has raised over $1 billion for the development of novel therapeutics and built many high-performing management teams. But most notably for our topic today, he was named one of Glassdoor's 50 CEOs of 2021, the top 50 CEOs, and number 15 nationwide. And if any of you are watching, you probably know that Glassdoor is usually not so positive for CEOs. That is very impressive. Welcome, Ankit. And then last but very much not least, we have Tim Hebert. He is a perennial entrepreneur, innovator, and adventurer, and he has been a business owner for well over 2 decades. Before joining Medicus IT as our Chief Revenue Officer, he ran an IT service firm, Atrion, which was a 160 million, 260 plus employee organization. He also founded Trilix, a business consulting and application development firm, and held the position of Chief Managed Service Officer at Carousel Industries. Tim also has a book on leadership that came out recently titled The Intentional Leader that I hope some of you can check out. And he has spoken on topics about intentional leadership, culture, and change around the world at many impressive symposiums. So we are ready to get going. So Tim, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Risa. As always, what a great introduction. I don't envy you for the task of introducing all of us and saying our names. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So welcome, Monica and Ankit. I'm really excited to have you guys here with us today. I think this is going to be a great conversation. So I want to start this by kind of talking. We did a strategy preparation session a couple of weeks ago. And during our conversation, one thing that became very, very clear to me is that we've been studying leadership individually for a long time. And we've actually been trying to put our knowledge that we learn into practice. And it reminds me when I was studying martial arts, and the idea behind martial arts was that you study and study and study, and the ultimate goal is to get to the black belt. A lot of people want to get the black belt. They want to put that around their waist. And then once they get the black belt, they feel like they're done. They've reached the pinnacle of learning and expertise and excellence. But in theory, the way martial arts works, you really become a student when you've got that black belt on. And I felt that we have put our black belts on in the recent past here and really are becoming students of leadership. So I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm excited about the moment to kind of hear your points of view and go from there. So when we started this particular episode of the Evolve series, we wanted to focus on leadership. And what we felt is that in the last 2 to 3 years, our world has changed by many factors that have affected the way we lead and run our businesses. And to name a few, that we've actually pre-COVID, the composition of the workplace was changing. We had 5 generations that were in the workplace. We had more people that were in the newer generations, the Generation Y, Generation Z, that were entering the workforce. They're actually starting to outnumber the people that are from my era, the baby boomers, that are Gen Xers. So there's a shift in generational complexion making up the workforce. So we saw that happening, which brought people retiring. So a whole bunch of things were happening because of that. Then, of course, we saw the whole COVID movement happen, where that took us from being in office 5 days a week, 8 hours a day to, now we're virtual most of the time, working from home. We can work from anywhere in the world. And that created a whole new set of opportunities and challenges for us to face. And it allowed us to meet the demands of a very challenging and difficult times. Then on top of that, as this was happening, we also saw what's been coined as the Great Resignation. People really evaluating where they are in their life and their career and making choices to change careers sometimes, to exit the workforce, to do all kinds of things that weren't happening at the scale that they were happening in the past. So we're facing all these issues. So what I want to do is I want to start this conversation with a simple question. We talked about we want to talk about where technology meets empathy. So I'd like to start just real quickly with kind of how would we define empathy and how do we see it happen in the workplace? So Monica, how would you kind of start the conversation talking about empathy?
It's a really great question, and this one was something that, we talk about intention, that I really, really had to study myself. And to go back to your original point, martial arts, of being a
Yeah.
student, one of the things that I've learned most of all, the more I learn, the more I have to learn. So
Yes.
very much resonate with that. Um, I've always been a type of person, worker, leader, that I just go, go, go. And
Mm,
so as I grew in leadership, as I developed in my career, empathy was something that I had to put a lot of attention to learning and
mm,
being better at. Um, I would define empathy as um, not necessarily fully having to understand, but being able to put yourself in someone's shoes.
mm,
Because I am the type of person that I can go for hours on end. If I have a goal at the end, if I know it's attainable, even if I know it's half attainable, I will do whatever to get there. That's how I am built, and I'll take care of picking myself up off the ground after. Not
yeah.
everyone is built that way, and it was very, very quick that I learned that. And so for me, it was asking myself, how do I put myself in someone else's shoes? Well, I feel like I can halfway, and the other one is asking, what are you
Mm,
feeling? How is this affecting you? And so it was putting together using my imagination, being open-minded to say, how might this be for somebody else that isn't
mm.
me? How might this affect me positively or negatively? And then asking that my team, my staff, both lateral, up and down, yeah, how is this affecting you? So really, again, putting yourself in their shoes, because sometimes I can't understand what they're going through. I've not done that. I've not built that way.
Yeah.
And so just asking those questions.
We all have unique life experiences. So we look at the world from different
Mhm.
lenses. We all have different personality styles and different ways we approach work and the way we interact in the workplace. So being able to understand the diversity of thought and the way people interact is really
Yeah.
key. Annika, in your book, you talk about, the real thing that strength of your book is that not all people have to be outgoing, extroverted, be able to get in front of a group and give speeches to, 100 people, so there's a level of empathy that we have to understand the role. So what would you add to the conversation?
Yeah, I agree with what Monica said in terms of trying to step into people's shoes. Yeah, I think as we think about leading organizations, it's shaping your assumptions about a situation or a way a person's acting based on their experience, not just yours.
Mm,
And I think a lot of us, are wired like Monica. Once you
mm,
want something, you go after it, and you just assume, well, geez, why aren't people doing it? They must not be bought in, or they must, not be right. And you kind of, I'll give an example. So, we're recalibrating, which I know we'll talk about, our hybrid model here at Spero, where we kind of rolled with the punches with the way that the pandemic would drive us. But now we have a chance to really reconstruct it. And we were having the discussion about, minimum requirements of when you need to come in the office versus not. And I said, well, geez, why isn't everybody just coming and it turns out everyone has a different experience. Some people live next door to the office. Some people live 2 hours from the office. Some people have to drive 100 miles to the airport to be able to get to the office. And you have to meet people where they are part way. And that shaped our assumptions.
No, that's one of the things when we were doing our planning session, I think that really struck me. All three of us, we may not have said it exactly the same way, but we talked a lot about our jobs as leaders is to meet the moment by meeting the people where they're at, right? And I think as we've seen in the last 2.5 years, everything's changing and everyone's going through a different set of experiences. And the more we can understand how to meet people where they're at is really, really key, for whatever level. So I think that's really a point that as leaders, we have to be a lot more sensitive to that as we move forward. Now in the last, say 3 years, and as we were forced to go to more of a virtual environment, how do we use the technology to kind of navigate that? I know we all know Zoom, and which we're on now, or Teams or WebEx or whatever the tool is that we're using. But how did that change the way we interacted with our team members and, in a way? So Anik, how would you kind of look at that? Because you're talking about, you're addressing your model right now, you're re-looking at it, re-examining it.
Yeah. Well, I think to the point you're making, Tim, technology's been critical in terms of meeting people where they are, especially when, public health considerations meant we couldn't get together. I think on another dimension, technology has been exquisitely helpful when you think about meeting people of different personality types,
Hmm.
the way that where they are. And certainly in the book, we go into the power of technology to be able to reach people in different ways of different personality types. And so, as an example, we would do this when the company was fully remote, which is we'd use technology to bring people together, but we'd also use technology to give people different ways of sharing their thoughts and feelings about the mission, right? And some people, especially the extroverts, need time to think out loud and feel heard. You have to take 15 minutes with them and let them speak their mind and process things. And the introverts,
Monica and I would know nothing about that.
and folks like me would prefer to write or use the chat function or have a few minutes to think about it and then come back rather than be put on the spot. And the beauty of technology is it allows you many different venues to meet people where they are. And certainly now that we're hybrid, sometimes there's no substitute to meet people where they are face to face too.
Yeah.
But even there, technology can help us in terms of getting the most out of even an in-person meeting. Even there, we'll give people the opportunity to use the chat function or use a poll like you did at the beginning of this session. And it just helps people convey thoughts that if you just use one channel, you'd never get. And we just get a lot richer discussion that way.
Yeah, I'm probably going to butcher this because I'm usually not good at this because of my dyslexia. But if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail or something like that.
Yep.
And so in our case, we have to use all the tools that are available at the right mix, right? We may use some more than others during certain circumstances, and it's always a chance to change and kind of evolve. So Monica, obviously you said you've been in a remote environment for several years before you actually were, forced into the hybrid model or whatever model happened during COVID. So how has technology helped you connect with your teams and stay relevant in this day and age?
One of the things that I think was a magical awakening for technology. Technology is looked at as cold, right? It separates us. You can't connect when you're a big computer. But what I found that Zoom brought was actually equity to teams. You talk to Ankit about quiet leaders, people who are shy. Well, when you're in a boardroom or meeting room, there are just sheer positioning in a table of somebody next to the boss, somebody over here, somebody back in the corner. You already are unconsciously placed based on where you are in the room. Well, Zoom levels the playing field. You are no longer next to the boss, and so it almost brings some weird level of equity that everybody has the equal voice. You are able to facilitate it differently just with the technology of raising the hand and giving an emotion. While I might do a cheer here, Ankit, maybe you use the reaction mode and do a cheer. So that type of thing. And another way that I've seen it really help my teams is one-on-one. And having hard conversations, those critical conversations, whereas you do that elevator up and walkway or hall walkway to the principal's office. And while in my actual office, I have a table with a couple chairs, so I don't have to be behind my desk. For the psychology of that, Zoom gives you that, and you are in your own safe space. And so I've found, even by asking, is this more comfortable? It's like, yes, I don't have to come to your office and get nervous. And as approachable as I think I am, as kind as I would hope people think that I am, at the end of the day, what I hate that is true is with certain letters behind your name, that there's an inherent nervousness that comes with that because you have a title, you have a certain power, or you have a position. And what I found with teams that I'm leading is it levels that. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah. A long time ago, and earlier in my career, I had an experience where I was sitting behind my desk, and employee was on the other side, and I could tell that they were very nervous being on the other side of the desk. And it was a good conversation, and I remember talking to the employee after the fact. I said, "Why are you so nervous?" And he said, "Well, I'm in your office. I'm in the office of the CEO." And they were just so intimidated by the fact they were in the CEO's office. They had never been in the CEO's office. And so I remember walking away from saying, wow, that's really strange. So I basically ripped my office, took all the furniture out. I basically put a couch, a love seat, a little coffee table in, had a little round table with 3 or 4 chairs. So I ended up winning an award in the technology world. And they sent out a photographer, a person to write a story. And I was interviewed and all this kind of stuff. So we're sitting in my office, and the guy who's writing the story says, "This is the most unique office I've ever been in. I've never been anything like this. How come you don't have a desk?" So I started explaining the story, and I started talking about the fact, I said, I've got to the point in time, I don't like square tables because there's always a side to a square table. And I said, I like the world where we're kind of all equal around the one table. And so when they wrote the article, they published it. There's the heading for the article was CEO hates round table, square tables. So they missed the whole point. But the point is, I love the fact that we can bring everyone to an equal level, right? So that we're all collaborating differently. And technology allows us to do that in a ways, and even give them a voice, as Anik said, using WebEx, we have multiple channels of communication, or Zoom, we have multiple channels. We have the video, we can speak, we can raise our hands, we can put comments in, right? There's all kinds of ways to interact. So let's kind of take a look at this and just switch the gear just a little bit. So we talked about the problem and kind of some of the advantages we use in technology. Do you think when we start to use this technology that our style of leadership has to evolve or change to make the most use of this technology? So Anik, what do you think in that case?
Yeah, Tim, absolutely. I think that the pandemic made a lot of us, really step back and deconstruct what's effective about reaching people about the mission, and when you think about what leaders do, there's many things you can delegate, but getting people excited about your mission and how you plan to accomplish it is something that only you can do.
Yeah.
And there was a style that all of us who, we kind of try, refine this every day, but there was a style that just worked for us in the in-person setting that we had to completely throw out and try again for. And so we go through this in the book, but kind of just starting from first principles, thinking about, who are the different folks at the company that need to hear this, and how do you tailor your message accordingly? And so a couple of things we did, one is, adding a little bit more visual to it, right? Because when you're sitting in a group, you have the body language to try to engage people, and you can do vocal intonations. I think, the benefit of Zoom is that you're less scary and more accessible.
Yeah.
The cost of Zoom is that the communication becomes less three-dimensional. And so we have to have intention, to add the 3 dimensions into it. The second thing that I found extremely helpful is that, and one of our values here at Spero is humility. In my view is that, there's at a certain point, you don't want to hear me talk anymore. So we pass the mic a lot, because I think it helps with people staying engaged. And also we found that when you're on your 15th Zoom of the day, it gets a little monotonic. So trying to change it up was extremely helpful. And the final thing that we typically didn't do in the before times was increasing interactivity. So I'll go back to, having people engage in a poll or a chat or responding to something or taking on a piece of the dialogue, I think was extremely helpful, because it kind of combats that kind of monotonic fatigue. If I'm the 15th person you've seen on the screen today, it doesn't matter how dynamic I am, you're probably a little bit fatigued. So we tried to change it up and kind of meet folks again where they are. We are all hands huddles are at the end of the day. So we realized that, I will be the 15th person you've seen on the screen today. And so we're going to do something a little bit different, or you're going to hear from someone different, or we're going to do it in a different way.
Yeah, I love that. We do a town hall here, and I would say the first couple of years that we've been doing this town hall across our entire organization, we're virtual. We have 6 locations, 7 now, or actually 9 now. So you have employees all over the country. So you're trying to bring them all together. So we've been using WebEx, Zoom, Teams as a vehicle to do that. And it started off the first couple of years where it was PowerPoint presentations, and we walked through numbers and we walked through things. We try to get through a lot of content, a lot of information. And we decided that the engagement level wasn't where we wanted to be, right? So I sit there, and if I went back and watch the sessions, even though I'm on it, it's like, man, this is freaking boring. We have to do something a little bit more. So we've turned our town halls more into a conversation, right? So it's 3 or 4 of the executive leaders get together and we talk about pertinent elements, and we focus on 1 or 2. We don't talk about everything. We're not doing, here's our financial report out, here's the strategic report out. We find 1 or 2 things that we think are really relevant in focusing on that. But I want to go to a word that Monica used, and you use it as well, Ankit. You used the word intentionality or intention, right? So Monica, you used that before. So you said you had to be more intentional. What do you mean by that? How do you bring attention more into what we're talking about?
A lot, I guess I would say I needed to replicate what I already believed in. And so my leadership principles didn't change. I just had to have them manifest a different way in this new environment. The connections, I had to make very intentional connections where somebody can come in the hallway and knock at my door and check in on something, or the clinic leaders would just naturally along their day talk to each other. What I had to do again was that we did huddles, and Ankit, to your point, unstructured huddle.
Yeah.
Right, at 8 to 8:30, whether you're on Zoom, you can be camera off, on your phone, on your drive, taking your kid to school, it doesn't matter. But we're connecting just to give the space. Are we talking about the weekend? Are we talking about our rough day? Are we just conversing with, a few drops of what's going on in the day to kind of replicate what we would have got in the office? And oddly enough, it was not welcomed at first. It was, oh, in the morning, what are we talking about? And I kind of just pushed it. And from my time at Ochin, this is how we function, because I led teams across the country. I led teams who I'd never met in person before,
Yeah.
but this is how we connected. And about 2.5 months in, it took about 2.5 months, our director of nursing said, whoa, I didn't know how much I needed this time, because it wasn't just about work, but work was weaved in. It was about connecting with each other and building those relationships and having those pop up really quick sprints of what's going on, what can we catch before it became an emergency or before we had to go to our structured agenda meeting. And so really it's recreating those natural moments, but scheduled, and giving that space. And that, although it's artificial, what I found that I was surprised when I was at Ochin was the impact and positive outcome was actually the same, if not better.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I like that too, right? Because what we lose more on a Zoom session, we lose the shoulders, right? That you have in a typical meeting, the walk to the conference room, the conversation that happens when you're getting coffee before you walk into the conference room, the people that linger after the conference, the meeting's done in the conference room and just chit chat a little bit. So we have to be intentional about bringing those kind of communications back in, those casual, unstructured, uninvited sometimes conversations. For me, one of my biggest hardest adjustments has been, I've been a leader that's focused on walking around the office, just walking in and just talking to people, seeing them in the workplace, meeting them where they're at. In the Zoom world at home, you can't really do that anymore, right? So you lose some of that. So you have to find other ways to build that same type of connection that you had before. So it makes it really challenging for us. So through this process, obviously the last 2.5, 3 years have challenged us as leaders in our organizations. What do you think the biggest lessons you guys personally have taken away in the last 2 years for yourselves?
Okay, you want me to go first?
Sure, why don't you go?
One thing that I really was forced and I had to learn, which was really hard for me, was to slow down.
Yeah.
I had to slow down. That long said quote of, sometimes you got to go slow to go fast. I had to do that. I had to stop, be more intentional, and go slow, knowing and seeing that actually paid off in the long run. It's not always easy, but taking the time to ask the questions when you don't have time to ask the questions, put aside the agenda, put aside the topic of the moment, and catch on to the cues of your staff. Like, hey, you're not doing okay. Are you okay? And really, really being observant. Those senses that we have that aren't, looking at somebody's body language, looking at their facial expressions. I had to become more in tune with my staff, because sometimes all I had was with the screen.
Yeah.
And for me, it was slow down. It was slow down and listen better, pay attention more, and be more focused. Put the phone away. When we're in this square, this box, this Brady Bunch box, if I look over here, you don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Right. It can feel sad if you are my employee and you are having this conversation with me and I'm looking this way, and it could totally destroy you. So is really paying very close attention to the nuances of how I carry myself out of courtesy and respect, and the emotion of what the other person's feeling. So I would say my biggest thing is just to slow down.
That's awesome. It's kind of funny that you mentioned it too, right? Because even just the way this works, when I'm talking to you right now in this conference, I'm looking at you and your picture, your video, I'm looking at your eyes, but I'm away from the camera, right? So I'm not looking at the camera. So just little things like that change in the realm that you're not really kind of aware of. So Anik, what's the biggest lesson you kind of learned in the last couple of years?
Yeah, so for me, the last couple of years have taught me, it kind of reinforced the lesson, and it's really the takeaway from the first half of the book, which is that the direct way to good leadership is being exactly who you are. And I think to the point that Monica had made, over the last couple of years, who you are now gets filtered through computer screens. It has to fit in this little box that I'm looking at in the screen. And people don't have ways, like when you're in the office and you go and you put away the dishes in the break room, people observe who you are. I do that at my house all the time. You can ask my wife whether I'm doing it right or not, but
She may have her own opinion on that.
Yeah, exactly. But people can't observe that. And so you made the point of intention. It's taking great intention to be exactly who you are and communicating that, because when you're a leader and you have a mission, especially one like we all do, everyone that's listening to this webinar is in the business of making sick people feel better in one way or another. Right. And I think two things get people up in the morning these days. One is that they're working for something important like that. And number two is that the people that lead them are exactly who they say that they are. And I think that those two things, the pandemic really challenged us in terms of trying to convey that in its purest essence. And that's what I've learned, is to just pay extra attention to that. Now that it's just, you can't take for granted that people will just hang around the office with you 40 plus hours a week and figure it out.
Yeah. And probably in some of the roles that we've been in is probably more than 40 hours a week that they're hanging with us.
Yeah, I'm being generous, I guess. But
yeah. So, it's interesting. So the book I wrote was called The Intentional Leader. And the whole idea behind the intentional leader is that as leaders, we really got to know who we are, right? Before we can, kind of extend our leadership out. We got to lead ourselves first and foremost, and really understanding who we are, how we're wired, what's important to us, what's valuable to us, is something that most people have a loose association with, right? So we understand, we know that we're a good person, we know that we want to be honest, we know that, but we really don't understand what that really, really means and how it applies to the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And we don't intentionally use that to make better decisions. So what I'm hearing from both of you guys that sounds like it's a similar theme is that we're saying we're not, with the changing of the world, we're not changing who we are. We're changing the way we manifest ourselves out to the people around us. We're finding different ways. We're expanding the way we're going to communicate. We may communicate in a different way. We may be forced to because of Zoom. We may be forced to because of our personality style to kind of reach out in different ways than other leaders. But the real key is that we have to be authentic with ourselves at the end of the day. And I think that's a big theme in your book, Ankit. And I know, Monica, we've talked a little bit about that. Authenticity is really, really important. People need to see who you are. And every time they see you, they need to see you as that authentic person. My biggest lesson is if you look at my DISC profile, I'm a very high I in my natural state. So on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm a 98. So I'm about a high I as you can get. So expressive, I can be very loud at times. So I'm not the quiet necessarily person. One of my biggest challenges is that I think in very abstract thoughts. So I have to be very intentional about how I take those abstract thoughts and turn them into more concrete. What I found in the last couple of years is I don't have the same amount of touch points as I had when I'm in the office every day. And so I'd come into a meeting, I would say, this is what we're going to do. It's kind of abstract. There's kind of a direction we want to go, but all the details may not be filled in. And over the course of the past, what would happen over the hallway conversation, someone walking in my office asking me a question, everything kind of filled itself out. But I found that I had to become a lot more focused on taking that abstract idea and make it very concrete. And I just had a moment that was a real good, we launched a new managed services product about a year ago. And I was walking through the tools with people and it was just not a good experience. It didn't go well. And so we're now on the next generation of that. We're upgrading it. We're launching that again. And I redid the whole way I presented that information to the team. I just spoke to the person who was lead on that. And it was like, that's exactly what we needed. It's exactly the way it was. But I had to really stop to take the moment to slow down, be more concrete, provide the details, think about who the audience was in a more concrete way to be able to deliver that. So for me, that's a big lesson I've learned in the last year. So we got a lot of people on this call that are in various levels of leadership in their organization. If you had to give them one or two pieces of advice, you kind of how to navigate these, and I'm going to use the term uncertain times because we don't know what it's going to look like. And I have a tendency, I don't want to talk about the negative side of things, because for everything that we've had gone through in the last year and a half, there's been a lot of positives that have come out of it as well. So what would be one or two things you'd give as advice to individuals to think about? So Monica, what piece of advice would you provide?
I think that this is something that I think has helped me navigate these uncertain times,
Yeah.
is accepting and knowing and letting go of the notion that you're going to have it all figured out, and having the confidence to be vulnerable enough to let your teams know that you don't know it all, but at the same time having the confidence and conviction to lead them again, where you still have that trust. They have that trust in you. You don't have to know it all. You can say, hey guys, we're going to figure this out. I can't. I mean, I'm saying something I actually say to my team quite often. I don't have the answer yet, but we're going to get through it together.
Right.
And it humanizes me, and it takes that pressure off of me, that I don't have to put this act on. And at the end of the day, we talk about authenticity. People can see through us. If we walk in and pretend to know it all, it's this facade that we might think people believe us, but they're not going to. Right? We can't melt. We can't be this jello where they have a leader that isn't going to, just has no structure to them. But I think there is value and there is power in being able to say, hey, I don't quite know it, but I'm going to figure it out. We're going to do something together. I'll come back. That is something that I think has helped me grow and empower me to actually discover more, is letting the things go that I don't, and connecting myself with other things that fill the gap of my weak spots, because we all have them. And if we think we're going to know every single piece, we're crazy. So do what I know well, and whatever those weak spots are, I don't need to fill them with me learning them. I can partner with somebody and help, join forces with that to get where I need to go. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson that I've taken in, that I think if I would have learned earlier in my career, someone shared with me, I think it would have helped me get along without the bumps that I've had to go through.
Yeah, well, that's one of our learning lessons, those bumps, right? I'm a big fan of the work of Bernie Brown, who's talked about vulnerability, the importance of vulnerability in leadership. And I think that sometimes there's a lot of myths that exist within the leadership world. We got to be extroverted. We got to be able to stand on a stage and give great presentations and wow people and have charisma out, out the yin yang. We also have this fallacy that we have to be great at everything. We have to be an expert. We have to be invulnerable, right? And I think understanding that we're leaders and we're human is really important aspect to do. Our people kind of understand that. When they see that, they resonate with it. Anik, how about you? What's a piece of advice you'd give the audience members here today?
Yeah, I'd echo something you said, which is for all the folks listening that either are leading folks or aspire to lead folks. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what your education level is and what your personality type is. You can lead. You just have to do it in a different way than that's unique to yourself. Yeah. So that's the first point that I'd make. And the second point is, I think that the key to that, no matter who you are, is going back to a theme that you raised earlier in this discussion, which is to meet people where they are. If you know who you are and you feel that you can lead, and you've figured out how to exercise that empathy muscle and know where people are coming from, you will lead, and people will follow you. And that's what I've learned. And especially when where people are coming from has multiplied by like 1,000 during the pandemic, right? So I knew where people were coming from before. They were all in the office. They all lived in Massachusetts, where we're based. And now they're all over the world, and they all have different things going on. And half of them might have dropped their kids off of school before they met me, and the other half are on their way to drop their kids off of school. And you have to account for all of those things as you lead now.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that, we're in interesting times as we think about it. And I think what I'm learning a lot in expanding, there is no one definition of what a great leader is. Right? There's not, you can't say, here's a formula, here's the 5 things you do every day, and it's going to make you a great leader. Giving, rousing speeches is not necessarily the model. You have to find your way. And the thing I also think that is important is that we're all leaders. And sometimes we think of ourselves as leaders because it's the title on our business card. And Monica, I think you were talking about this, the letters after your name, right? I believe that we're all leaders. We have every company that we have, every employee is a leader in some form or fashion. They may not lead all the time, But, one of the things I did in my organization previous to this is that I brought leadership to every employee. So you joined my company within the first 90 days to 160 days, you went through a 2-day leadership workshop. And it didn't matter if you were the shipping and receiving clerk, the front desk receptionist, senior executive that just joined our staff, you went through this program. And the reason behind it was at moments that front desk receptionist, when a person walks into that front desk, they're now leading that engagement. When a client's calling because they can't find a package was just shifted, you're leading that engagement. You have to act as a leader. So we all need to understand we all have moments that we lead, right? And that if we can become better leaders and more effective leaders, more intentional, we can actually act with more empathy, then we become more successful in the long run. And I think bringing that all together really helps us become successful in what we do. So just real quick, final thoughts. So it's been interesting 2.5, 3 years. Final thoughts. Where are you in your journey? What do you think the next big thing for you to kind of accomplish is? So, Anik, I'll start with you because you got a lot on your plate. In the starting 9 companies, writing a book, public speaking, the whole 9 yards. So what's on the agenda for you?
Well, this is leadership and building companies is a continuous journey. So I'm still learning every day, and I'm excited about what each day will bring as we try to bring medicines to patients. And that's what I do. Find ways to put people together to develop medicines that are going to make sick people feel better. And that's what I see myself doing. I think that in the future we will continue to all learn together how we work together in this new post-COVID environment. I think it unlocks a lot of power. People can do a lot more than they used to be able to do. And also in some ways, people have to find different ways to answer the hard questions and come together than they did. And as we continue learning how to get that right, I'm excited about what we can do. I mean, for us here, for patients, but just generally, as a group of people who want to make things better.
I love that. I think it's interesting is that there's a lot of conversation now that COVID is, we're in past COVID, hopefully, that, what's the office look like? Is it going to be virtual? Is it going to be kind of a hybrid? Are we going to come back to the office? And there's a lot of conversations that I see happening in that realm. And I think what I would take away is a lesson that as a leader, I would want to focus on more. I want to understand, how do you actually lead people that are remote better? And I think from my perspective, I think there's 2 things that have to be developed stronger. And me personally, I have to really work on this as I go forward. Is number one is I think that we have to be better at connecting the mission, the purpose of what we're doing to the work that we do. Especially what we do here. We're all involved in improving the lives of those around us, right? Every person in the world out there to improve their lives, whether it's through medicine, whether it's through healthcare delivery, or supporting those that deliver healthcare, right? So there's a big purpose in there. So how do we connect that to everything that we do and make it so that it's very purpose driven in what we do? And I think when we're remote, we lose sight of that sometimes. We don't see this stuff happening as much. We see the 4 walls of our office and our home, but we need to see beyond that. And I think that's the thing we have to look at. The second thing I think we really need to look at, and once again, me as well, is how do we measure success in a virtual hybrid work from home environment? We used to measure success very simply by how long did they sit in the seat in the office, right? And the more they sat in that seat, whether they were effective or not, we viewed them as being more successful. I think we have to try to change the way we evaluate what success looks like, what greatness looks like in this world. And we got to measure in a different way because, I think we can be more successful with people doing things that fits around their schedule. They can have more work-life integration and balance. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So Monica, what are you thinking?
What I have on my plate is very similar to what you touched on. Our organization right now is going through a couple shifts of transformation. We were, like many companies, were affected by the Great Resignation. Our turnover was in 21 was just astronomical, as many, right? So we have probably 60% of our workforce that is new, is within 1 year new. So we talk about connecting people to the mission. It is a requirement. These new people, they don't have those ties and the relationships and the years of service to tug at their heart that this is what it's part of. We have to teach that now in a way where a part of the workforce is remote, as you touched on, right? It's so much more of a challenge. measuring success, we are shifting to KPIs, tracking about how do we do it in a way that's with compassion, that we're not just numbers driven. And so it's this fine line in dance that we're trying to do that, you know, in my role that I'm leading, that it weighs heavily on me to make sure that I am honoring our staff's feelings, because their feelings are real, and honoring that and recognizing and making them feel valued, but still keeping the doors open. Right? We all want to give time and space. It's a health center. We see patients. It's hard to see patients. It's harder today to see patients because, as with all of us, our tempers are low or higher, should I say, our threshold is lower, and our patients come in, they're more angry. They're going through things that we don't know about. So not only do we have to consider as leaders what our staff is feeling and going through, we need to consider what our patients are feeling and going through. We may be the only smile they see that day. You know, we're in downtown LA in the Valley. We serve the underserved. And it's a special population that we are just honored to take care of. It is an honor to serve, you know, this population, but it also comes with its set of challenges, and it's motivating our staff to keep the patients motivated. And so it's a heavy task, and I'd lie if I say I have it all figured out, because I don't.
Yeah.
But you know, I joke with the team that I tell them we're you know, master Lego builders, and we do it. You know, we may not see 10 steps in front of us, but if we can see that next one, then we can see the next one. So that's what I have in front of me, and I'm really excited by it. I'm nervous by it. I feel the pressure by it. But I know what's on the other side is a stronger staff, a healthier community, and I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
That's fantastic. I love it. You know, I think the only thing I've ever figured out in my life, you know, at this point in time, is that I don't have it figured out. So, so we got a lot of work to do. So, Anik and Monica, thank you for your time today. It's been a great conversation. Let's, you know, keep this conversation going out. So let's help our organizations transform and bring healthcare to the world. I'm going to turn the floor back over to our moderator, Risa.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you guys so much. That was an amazing conversation, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. So guys, it is time for Q&A. Does anyone that's been watching have any questions for any of our leaders here individually or as a group? Feel free to put it in the Q&A now, and let's get started. All right, so what is one of the biggest, this is a hard question. What is one of the biggest takeaways that organizations could try and accomplish before the end of the year, knowing that next week is Thanksgiving?
I'll try to start with that. I'm going to take it away from work. Being that it's the holidays, being that we're about 6 weeks away from the said end of the year, for me, what I would say is that I think organizations should see if there's a way they can make all their teams feel connected. And the holidays are the perfect time to do it. Just by it being the sheer new year, there's always this magical piece of ending something, a time of reflection, starting something new. So how can you connect, not on a work level, but on a personal level, as far deep as you can with all of your workforce, your teams, your leaders, both up, sideways, and down, and reach out in some way and on a personal connection? I think that's what I would, at least that's what I'm trying to do for the end. And I think it's just so important, especially right now, that personal connection, relationship touch.
Yeah, Monica, I'd like to add to that too, because I think that's a great starting point for this, you know, to close out this year strong with, right? It's been a tough 2.5, 3 years at every level, right? Work is getting harder. You know, the economy is, you know, in a state of flux right now. There's a lot more uncertainty in the world in general. You know, we've had political unrest in our country and in the world as well. It's been a tough time. There's a lot out there. Our employees and the staff and that are doing the work they're doing really have been unsung heroes, right? And I think this is a moment to express that gratitude and kind of recenter ourselves as we get ready. So I connect with that a lot. And that's also think is a great time to reconnect them to the purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing? So if you haven't done that in a while, I think it's a really great time to do that. And for me, it's about setting the stage for what 2023 is going to look like. You know, if we look forward with optimism and hope and the fact that we can transform, we can create change, and we can establish that on January 1, then hopefully that can permeate throughout the rest of the 365 days of the year. So, Anik, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I'd add, yeah, certainly, I echo the gratitude, for the folks that you're working with, and for the folks that, also your families that, you work for, but also put you in a position to be able to do what you do for your organizations. The other goal that we have is reflection. Like you said, it's, each year, we do things that are complex, and it's an opportunity for us as a team and for individuals to reflect on, what do we do this year? What did we like? What did we not like? What
Yeah.
should we keep the same? What should be different? And, start the new year with, the commitment to perhaps tinker a little bit with the way that we do our work, and see how that goes after reflection.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that. I think one of the things that leaders we can do better at in general is, I think, this kind of reflection in motion, right? What are we doing well? What can we do better? How can we do things differently? I think that's something we need to get in the rhythm of doing on a regular basis, right? That reflection helps us really kind of perfect what we're trying to get to, whether it's ourselves as a leader or what we're doing as a business. So I like that one a lot as well. Marissa, you have other questions for us?
Yes, I do. All right. So here's the next one. How do you inspire other leaders within your organization to adopt quiet leadership? I guess that's a good one for
Well,
Ankit.
yeah,
Well,
no,
that's
that's a great question. There's a few ways that we do it. I think, first is, meeting people where they are. So the first is, you have to embrace and be okay with being quiet. It's not a bad thing. It's who you are. And then, I think that's 80% of it, is a lot of the folks here at the company that are quiet people. It's important to sit down and, one, give them permission to accept that they're quiet, and that whether they attempt to or not, they're still leading, whether by example or by commitment to the mission or just trying to get the job done. And then it's with that kind of base in hand, putting people in positions to then stretch themselves. I believe that there's really no substitute for becoming a better leader than just doing the job, and, getting that direct and rapid feedback as you go. So yeah, I guess that's a long answer. The short one is the same way that we teach leadership generally, whether you're quiet or not, is by, with solid encouragement, good feedback, and then just throwing people into the pool and helping them swim.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up a thread that I think that Anik started to talk about a little bit there. I think that's really important for that next level of leadership. I would say as a society, and I'll talk in North America where my experience is in the corporate world, I don't think we invest enough in our middle level managers to become great leaders. Most of them have gotten to where they are in their career by being really good at what they do. That being good at a task, a function, doesn't necessarily make you a good leader of people, right? I'm a good task processor, I'm a good mathematician, I'm a good, scientist, whatever it happens to be that I am. I can be really good at that, but it doesn't mean it's going to translate to being a good leader. So we do not spend enough time helping develop leadership, whether it's quiet or otherwise, right? It doesn't really matter. I think what we have to do as senior leaders is we have to look at ways to challenge our staff to take a step further outside their comfort zone. Only way for them to grow, to become more effective leaders, is to push them outside the comfort zone. They have to take one small step. They don't have to jump like I would do with both feet into something, but they got to take one step further. And I don't think we do that enough, or we challenge them, but we don't give them the support behind it. So they're not successful. And when they're not successful, we're not there to help guide them back into a level of success. So there's a realm where, as leaders, we can do more to help that. But I think it starts with challenging our team members to take that next step outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, Tim, I would echo what you said about the middle of organizations. We had the middle of our organization go away for an offsite, and what we told them was that, they are the heart of the company. Everyone in the company either reports to them or they report to. They see everything, they make everything happen. And we're only as good as the middle of the organization, because as good of senior leaders as we might be, they're doing all of the actual work.
Yep.
And, it's so important that we're investing in them. And to the question, the person who asked the question, many of them end up being quiet folks in our line of work because they tend to be scientifically oriented, or they tend to be focused on data. And you're right, Tim, they should, and organizations are better if they actually lead with intention. And so, one is giving them permission, and two is, if they're quiet, there's certain tools and strategies that you can go through to drive. And if you're extroverted, there's others, and giving them that toolkit has been really helpful for us.
Well, I'll even put it this way, and I think Monica hit on it too, is that, Monica and I are on the opposite end of that side. We're kind of loud, right? But sometimes we have to exercise that quiet side as well, right? To be quiet, listen, be thoughtful. Don't be the first one to speak, those kind of things. So, being able to build that whole well-roundedness is really important as we go forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I could, to add to that, what Ankit, you're talking about, the intentionality behind building that middle management. I couldn't have said that more perfectly. They are the absolute engine of our organization. And I've put very, very much intention in our one-on-one meetings. 30–40% of it is about the work of the tasks, and the 60% is growing them. And
Yes.
Tim, what you said, push them to be uncomfortable. As leaders, it's our job to put them to be uncomfortable for them to grow. Because even the permission on kit, 100%, for those who won't take it because they're afraid, we do have to push them into that. But be there to support them. Push them to space, right? Push them in the pool, but we're going to give them floaties, and we're going to be there, right? We're going to be there with them and walk them through. I mean, I'm doing that with a couple of people right now because I know they have it in them. They just have to be okay to make a mistake. They have to be okay to be embarrassed. They have to feel comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's talking through, like, I was there too. This is what you're going to feel, and this is going to be okay. And it's truly walking them those baby steps along the way. And when you see those little light bulbs and you see them lead for the first time, it's just so rewarding. And Tim, to what you said, the intentionality of me stop talking and lowering my voice to give the space for them to rise, that is something that I work on with myself, because I can easily take over a room just saying hello. But just reducing how much I am leading to give them that space to lead and feel comfortable. So absolutely.
That's it, exactly.
That's great and really good advice for all of us, even myself. I wrote that down. So thank you guys so much for that. And thank you everyone that tuned in. I want to remind you all that one of today's attendees will win a free copy of Ankit's book, Quiet Leader, Loud Results, which I think many of us may be going out and buying now. I need to learn a little bit more about how to be a quiet leader. I would say I'm on the extrovert side myself.
Just a little bit, Risa, just a little bit.
Anyways, so please make sure you follow us on LinkedIn to hear back when we announce our next webinar topic, which will resume in January. I'll put in the chat right now so everyone can see our LinkedIn handle. And otherwise, I just really want to thank everyone for attending. And I really want to thank our speakers, Monica, Ankit, and Tim. This was an amazing conversation and something we don't hear about every day from IT firms, which is why, just again, that Medicus is really trying to do something so different. And I'm so proud to be involved in the organization. So thank you, Monica. Thank you, Ankit. Thank you, Tim. Thank you to everyone that joined. And we will see you all again soon.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.